Hey guys, it's Caroline from Chaos Theory here with a new Among Us, and today we will talk about Ed Gein. Those of you who don't know who Ed Gein is, like my father, I had no clue. He had no idea who this man was. I figured everybody heard about him. Ed was known as the Butcher of Plainfield for a very good reason, and we will go into his family, his relationship with his mother, and what led to him committing these atrocious bad stuff that he did. So the reason why I'm doing Ed Gein now is because Netflix has a series called Monsters, and their third season is with Ed Gein. So that'll be really, really interesting. Can't wait. I don't know when exactly it's coming out. I think it's coming out in the fall, but I'm not quite sure. Can't wait to see it. It's going to be really amazing. So to dive into this, who is Ed Gein and what led him to become a serial killer, basically? And this is really weird because this happened in the 50s, guys, and the term serial killer didn't get coined until early 80s by the FBI. So he was a serial killer before serial killers actually, the term existed, which is really awkward. But Ed was born August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. He is the second son of George and Augusta Gein, and his dad was born in 1873. His dad had a tragic upbringing. His whole family decided to move to Wisconsin, and while they were crossing the river, his entire family drowned, and he was the sole survivor. He got adopted into another family that really didn't want him, but kind of took him in no matter what. He had a tragic life. He was a raging alcoholic, and he died of cirrhosis of the liver in 1940. His mother, Augusta, is another character. She was born in 1878. She was a Lutheran, but like extreme religious. She believed in, reading the Bible from A to Z. So she showed everything in the Bible to her sons. She was overly controlling, especially with Ed, who, cared for her and just like had this obsession with his mother. She preached against the immorality of the world. Women were evil. It was all about the sins of the flesh. Very, very, very religious, but like overly zealous about it. Ed basically took care of his mother with his older brother, after their father passed away. None of her children got married or had children themselves. She was very much, you stay at home and you take care of the farm and all of that. She had a stroke in 1944, shortly after her first son passed away. And a year later, she actually passes away. So during that 1 year where she was bedridden, Ed took care of her. He bathed her. He fed her. He clothed her. He took care of his mother, which is very admirable, but it's also what led to his mental breakdown. And when she passed away, he stayed in the farmhouse, but he closed her room off and never went in there. It became like a shrine for him. So like I said, Ed had an older brother named Henry, who was born in 1901. Henry was a little bit different, tried to take his distance a little bit from the family and his mother. At some point, he wanted to go live with a single mother that he had fallen in love with, and his own mother was like, "This is not happening. You're staying home here. That woman is evil. She had a child out of wedlock. You are not doing this." In 1942, he tried to enroll in World War II. He was denied because of his age. So he basically stayed on the farm even though he wanted to be away and not live this kind of life. It's a little bit weird how he passes away. It said he died of a heart attack while protecting the family home from a fire. That's the story that Ed told the police when they came to investigate and all that. And they believed it. They were like, okay, yeah, that can happen. But during Henry's autopsy, they found a bump in the back of his head. So did he really die from a heart attack, or was it his brother that may have clomped him behind the head? We'll never know. It's never been proven. He's never been arrested or convicted or charged with anything for his brother's murder. But it's a little strange that, you have this brother who is butting heads with your mother, who you adore and you're obsessed with, and you can't, see any wrong with her. And then all of a sudden, poof, you die. A little strange. So it's often said that the movie Psycho is based off of Ed. So Norman Bates would be like an Ed Gein, basically. And then you also have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is another movie that, quite frankly, shows the darker side also of, using somebody's skin and, mutilating bodies and all of that. So these two movies are closely related to Gein, and it's been said that the authors, the people who wrote these stories, kind of use that as a stepping stone for their stories. Ed would make his own knives, which, back in the 50s may not have been so weird, but he had a very specific way of making knives and would sometimes use bone as the end, as the handles. It's just weird. It's just awkward. Like I said, this is all spanning in the 50s where he did all of his crimes. In Wisconsin in the 50s, and even before probably, deer hunting was super, super cherished. Everybody went deer hunting during deer season. Like, it was huge. The thing that's a little weird is people were like, oh no, he was an avid deer hunter, and he would go out and he would skin the deers and he would open them up, and you'll know why later I'm talking about this, but in his interviews that he has done with the cops, he said that he never has been deer hunting. But it's a little weird because a lot of his neighbors would say, oh, Ed would be so sweet and he would bring us venison after, he went hunting. And was it really venison, guys? Because, once I tell you what he did, you might have some questions. You might wonder too. So like I said, this all happens in the 50s. His mother dies in 1945. He goes through like a mental breakdown, let's face it. His mother not being around, he doesn't know what to do with himself. The house becomes in disarray. Then in the 50s, he starts grave robbing, which is a little strange. Now, the thing you need to know is after Ed's mother passes away, a lot of locals have said that they saw him at the cemetery night after night on his mother's grave, telling her, come back to life. He thought he had the power to bring her back from the dead. And so he tried to, you have to come back to me, a little strange, but it's obsessional. It's an obsessional relationship with his mother, obviously, Grave robbing. In probably 1952, 1953, his first victim was actually a woman named Eleanor Adams. And strangely enough, she was just a couple of feet away from his own mother's grave. So it's like, he was like, oh, this woman, she's so close to my mother. Maybe I should take her body. So he would dig up these bodies shortly after they were buried, because the earth was probably softer. It was easier for him to dig up the body. He took some bodies home. He also mutilated a lot of bodies inside the grave and then, put earth back on them and like, oh, nothing happened. So when he was arrested in 1957, in November of 1957, the police went into his house, and it was the House of Horrors. I don't know how else to explain it to you. There were body parts everywhere, human skulls made into bowls. He had a belt of nipples. He had a box of vulvas, like heads, like faces taken off the skull, and like it's just disturbing, guys. It's incredible. I don't even know how you would react to finding all of this in somebody's house. It was insane. And when they interviewed him, and if you guys can find the lost tapes of Ed Gein, it's worth listening to, because Honestly, I learned a lot from watching that documentary, and it's insane how he's very detached. He shows almost no emotion, and he'll say in the tapes, listen, it's a haze, like I don't remember doing these things. It's like he blacked out when he did it, and he obviously knew he was doing wrong. He just couldn't help himself. Like there was nothing else he could do. Mutilated a lot of bodies. We're not exactly sure how many, okay? Because like I said, he mutilated some bodies, put them back in the grave. So how are you supposed to know that that body's mutilated? And he's never admitted to everything that he's done. But from what we can tell, from what he had in his house, it's a lot of people. So he was officially arrested, like I said, in November 1957. He was actually having supper with his neighbor when the police came knocking at his farmhouse, asking him questions about a lady named Bernice Ward. Now, Bernice owned the hardware store in town, and her son had gone into the hardware store on that day, found blood, shell casings, and a receipt for antifreeze for Ed Gein. So he was like, okay, something happened to my mother here. This is wrong. Got the cops involved. And he was like, listen, the last receipt that I can see is for Ed Gein. He's always been the town recluse. He's always been a little strange. So let's look into this. So the police go over to the farmhouse. Ed is not there, obviously. He's at his neighbor. They go into this woodshed, and they find the most horrific scene that they could have imagined. Bernice Warden is hung by her ankles by the rafters in the shed. She is completely naked. She's gutted open like a deer, and her head is missing. It's incredible. It's just incredible. And so they're like, well, obviously, this is Ed doing this. Why would this woman be in his shed? So they looked for him. They found him at the neighbors. They arrested him, charged him with the murder of Bernice Warden. And then that's when things started happening. So then, like I said, they went into the house. They found all these mutilated bodies, all these body parts, weird stuff. And in all of the body parts that they found the head of a woman named Mary Hogan, who had disappeared in 1954. And a lot of people had suspected Ed of having something to do with Mary's disappearance and her possible murder, because at this point they had no idea where she was. And so they found her head in a box, and they were like, okay, well, obviously Ed did this too. And it's just disturbing to realize that, this man, did these things to these women. And basically what comes out of the interviews that he's done is all this grave robbing, this mutilation of bodies, to find out that his ultimate goal was to kind of bring his mom back. And you're like, okay, but like, no, she can't. She's dead. He was never able to actually dig up his mother. He never did that. But he thought, well, if I take body parts and I put like this bodysuit together, I can raise her up from the dead, which is insane. Completely insane. So they found a bodysuit where he had sewn together different body parts from different women to do this suit. The thing that's a little strange in all of this, and if you've seen Psycho, you've seen, you've heard that, he dressed up like his mother, and like, he was very much obsessed with a woman named Christine Jorgensen. And this woman, it was his inspiration a little bit, because this was an ex-GI. So this was a man becoming a woman in the 40s and 50s, which was unprecedented. Let's face it. She was a trailblazer. But this kind of led him to think, oh my gosh, I can actually do something about this. Like I can, maybe wear this suit, become my mother. Like it was crazy. And then there was a bunch of stuff that, they asked themselves. The police were like, okay, well, there was a heart in a frying pan. Was he a cannibal? He may have been. Like I said, he gave venison to his neighbors. Did he think, oh, well, I'll give him some meat and they won't know? Was it human meat? We have no clue. No idea. Then a lot of people suspected, well, maybe he sexually assaulted these dead bodies, masturbated on them, did something to them sexually. Was he into necrophilia? We don't know. It's all really, really disturbing. And like I said, when the cops kind of confronted him and were like, Ed, what did you do? Explain to us the series of events. And he couldn't. He said it was a haze, it was a blackout, he couldn't remember. Apparently that's very common for serial killers to kind of like black out because they know it's so bad. They know it's evil that their mind shuts off so that they are able to go through this stuff. It's just insane what he did, but he couldn't stop himself, obviously. So he was convicted in 1958 of the first-degree murder of Bernice Worden, but unfortunately, he was found legally insane. So he never served any jail time. He went straight to the mental institution where he stayed until his death on July 26, 1984. So he died in the mental institution in Wisconsin. And the crazy thing, guys, is that Ed is buried at the Plainfield Cemetery next to his family, but also near his victims. And that's the crazy part. How you accept that this man did this, I don't know. How do you explain that he's buried there? I don't know. So you'll see in the picture that we'll put, there's 3 grave markers there. So the space that is in between, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's between his mother and his father. That's where Ed is. There's no marker there anymore. People kept chipping away at it. Like, I found a picture of it like when it was very small, and so they took it away. So we know that he's there, but there's no marker. And actually a lot of people have been going there and like taking pieces of his mother's grave marker, which is a little awkward. But so anyway, like I said, he was disturbed, obviously. Why you do this, why you act this way, I don't understand. And it was a huge shock to the Plainfield community, which is really small, guys. In the city, there's like 900 people in the city. So it must have rocked their worlds that this happened. And that's the story of Ed Gein. I mean, he was a mentally disturbed man, just insane. Thought that he could resurrect his mother, like obsessional love with a parent. I mean, we've all heard of the Oedipus complex that you have when you're 5 or 6 and you want to marry your dad or your mom because they're your, but that goes away. Unfortunately, with Ed, the way that his mother raised him and the fact that his father was a raging alcoholic brought him and his mother very, very close, but to a point of obsession, and that's not good. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to get to that 500 mark. And definitely check out Monsters season 3 as soon as it comes out. I think it'll be really, really wonderful. Charlie Hunnam is playing Ed, and I cannot wait to see what he does in that role. So take care, guys. Don't forget, again, to like and subscribe. Thank you. I hope you really enjoyed, and I will see you soon. Bye.